Hello, welcome to the All or Nothing podcast. Our official sponsors are KR Couriers and Transport Limited. This is a Northwest based courier company delivering all across the UK. They can assist in home moves and removals to large, heavy and bulky items, collections and drop-offs. Fast, safe and reliable deliveries. Please get in touch for a free quote. You'll find all the information within the description. Thank you. Hello everybody and welcome back to the All or Nothing podcast with myself, Billy Moore, and today's special guest is Dougie. Now Dougie?
Thomalla.
Thomalla. Dougie?
Italian descent.
Italian descent. Dougie has got an incredible story to tell. Dougie is like, you know, a former professional bodybuilder. You've trained with Sergio Nobre, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Paco Rabanne. You know, you've been, you know, an international treasure hunter. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we go down that road.
Well, the thing is, I'll start by thanking Bill for asking me to come here today, because it's quite an honour. And you're quite an honourable man yourself. And it's such a pleasure to be in your company and see you in dedicated fitness. I've trained all over the world, and I find dedicated fitness one of the finest gyms. I've trained in America, Italy, Belgium, France, all over, with Lou Ferrigno in Pennsylvania for the Mr. World, and so the story goes on. There's many more things. This is just the beginning of what I'm going to tell you. I've met them all. Dorian Yates, Arnold, competed with Lou Ferrigno in the Mr. Universe, and then I was fortunate enough to be asked to go to Pennsylvania for the Mr. World. There I met loads of German and Italian bodybuilders. People like my friend Frank Richards is world class. He was 6th in the Olympia, or 5th. He lived with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Franco Colombo for 2 years. And Frank said to me, "What I tell you, you tell no one." And one day, I was in the house and the phone went, and I'd been to a show the previous day. The show was judged on one day and the show the next day, and Frank rang me up and says, "You can win this. You need to do this and do that." Anyway, I come second. He said to me, "Come to my house, and what I tell you, you tell no one else." And I went up and up and up. I was lucky to have a good friend called Bill Hemsworth, Barrow and Furness. Lovely fella. He was professional and we used to go everywhere, and he said, "I think it's time you started to compete abroad because nobody knows you." I said, "Hey Bill, you're asking a lot." He said, "Well, if your wife wants to come, they'll pay for your wife, but you pay for your airfare." So I went to Saarbrücken, Germany, first international contest, Mr. Germany. And I went, "Bill, this is some place, this." And it was run by a fella called Sean Possing, a German. And the Germans were quite arrogant because they were looking at me, and he said, "Put your dressing gown on and let's go in this room. Take your top off." I said, "Why?" He said, "Just take your top off and start posing to me. Now you've got them watching you. They're wondering who you are. Let's go in this other room." So we went in there and we come to the super heavyweights, my class.
Is that where you were in, the super heavyweights?
Yeah.
Wow.
Then he said, "They're all coming in, they don't know who you are." He said, "Now these are the fellas against you." And when the show began, it was the only show my wife didn't come with me to. And the show started, and they judge it like the ice skating. They put cards up from 1 to 9, and Bill is sitting at the end of the hall. And he's putting his hearts up in the air, shouting and all that. I said, "What the hell's he shouting at?" First round, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. He said, "You've won your height class." I said, "I couldn't." He said, "You have." And then the promoter said, "Would you go to a major store like Lewis's, because all the trophies are in the store?" And I went in, I was wandering around. And when I seen them, they were fabulous. So after an hour or so, they were putting all the trophies into 2 Mercedes, big black Mercedes. So I got in the front seat, and there was one trophy. It was the overall winner of the Mr. International. And the door opened, and the fella says, "Would you hold this?" Not thinking I would win that. It was mine. 6 hours later, 7 countries. There's things like that, you know. Even when I went to Pennsylvania, to New York, for the Mr. International, you think you're big until you see some of them Yanks. But they were all nice, and I met Lou Ferrigno again. And he wanted to come back to New York with us, because a friend of mine, Bobby Campbell, was a powerlifter, and he emigrated to New York. He picked me up from Long Island through New York. From New York, we came over the big San Francisco Bridge or something, I don't know. Anyway, he said, "It's only down the road, 5 hours down the road." And it was in a massive Congress hall. And Lou Ferrigno was there, and he said, "How are you doing, English?" Just talking. And he said, "Are we okay for the lift back to New York tonight?" I said, "Of course." And I said to Bobby, "I've got him in the back seat."
The old.
Yeah. He was a very, very nice person. He was from Italian descent. Lou Ferrigno is an Italian name, you see. And then he took me all around the Bronx, Chinatown. And he said, "Look at those gates over there." I said, "That belongs to the mafia." And you see them walk around with guns. And when I came home, there was several other shows. There was another show shortly after. And when you'd been dieting for 20 weeks, you try to stay in the same condition, which is very, very difficult. And I know quite a lot about physiology, biology and nutrition. You are what you eat, and then it's training, and then any medication you want to take after that. It's up to yourself. But people think because 1's good, 2's better. If 2's good, 3's better. That's not the case. Your own receptor sites in your brain shut down. Anyway, I was invited to compete in Ostend, Belgium, with a Mr. International. And I don't know whether you'll know this. Do you remember Terry Phillips?
Scouser. Yeah.
I know Terry very well. He was in the short class, and I was always in the heavyweight, 16 stone plus. We went to Belgium, and got your own music. Yeah, they had a 20-piece orchestra playing behind the curtains. I said, "No, I'd sooner pose to my own music." And I used to have a lot of Italian music, like Spartacus and Ben Hur, all tuned into one. And I went on stage, and a fellow called Bob S. Bright, he was Dutch. He won, I come second. And Teddy said to me, "Don't get changed. They're going to take the runners up." I said, "Teddy, you've had it this time." Anyway, he scrubbed it. So came back, and I just go all over the place. And because Bill Hemsworth, he said to me, "There's a professional bodybuilding show. Why don't you ever go to?" I said, "Billy, it's a different league, you know." He said, "You're good enough." So I went, and there was about 9 or 8 lads, and you tend to, you know, "You okay, mate?" You don't get too friendly with them.
Yeah.
And lucky enough, I come second in the Mr. Britain, professional Mr. Britain. They only ever run one show. Well, after that, I was with NABA, National Amateur Bodybuilders Association, and I competed with them for many years, 15 years. And I got a letter to say that I was banned from NABA.
You were banned from NABA.
Because I come professional Mr. Britain.
Yeah.
And my wife was with me, and she said, "Do not tell him where he can put his physique. It belongs to him. And then I started competing abroad, and I've done very well. I've got so many international, I've got over 50, 60 trophies from all over Europe, America, Belgium, Holland, Italy, Germany. And I was invited to compete for the Mr. Europe in Blackpool, and Paco Rabanne was there. Paco Rabanne is the man that makes the aftershave.
Yeah.
And with speaking Spanish, we just clicked. And he had photographs taken with me, which I have in the house. And he said to me, would you come to Tenerife? I'll pay you £500 to appear on stage, a personal appearance. And I said, oh, I don't know about that. Anyway, when you're dieting so long, you tend to eat things you shouldn't eat, and you don't feel quite confident. So I didn't go anyway. And then my wife used to say, your boyfriend's been on the phone, pack up the band. And he was going to Blackpool, so I went to Blackpool, and I come 4th or 5th in my class. And he said to me, how are you doing? I said, okay. He said, would you come to Madrid? So I have some photographs taken for the Spanish bodybuilding magazines. You can stay with me in my house, multi-millionaire. I'll pay you this. And I said, oh, I didn't go. So time goes on. I've done so many things in my life, Bill.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe.
So you've been on the front of bodybuilding magazines, I've seen the pictures, you know, it's incredible, you know. What motivated you, right, Doug, to become a bodybuilder? Because, you know, what was going, you know, you're from Liverpool, you're Italian descent, you're a Scouser, you're, you know, what motivates you to bodybuild? Because you get, you know, what are you now? You know, you don't want to tell us his age here, but I'm going to guess, but I'm not going to say it. But you know, you've been around for a long time.
Wonderful life, Bill. A wonderful marriage.
Yeah.
And
you've been around for a long time, haven't you, Doug? So, what motivated you to bodybuild?
This is a lovely story. I served my time as a joiner, and when I left school at 15, my dad said to me, "You're starting work in 2 weeks." I said, he said, "You're going to be a joiner." I had to go all the way out to Ainsley to Costaines. And I liked the sun because I tan very easy. So in my dinner hour, I used to sit outside and sunbathe. And I come past this shed, I had this clanging. And I didn't take any notice. The next day I come out sitting in the sun. And I opened in. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm doing bodybuilding. He was doing dumbbell curl. He says, you want to have a go? I said, no, not really. So when I came out the next day, my mind got the best of me. I went in and I said to him, let's have a go at that, John. And I was doing dumbbell curls, didn't know what I was doing. He said, you do well one day. That was like 50 years ago. I would have loved to have met that man. And that's how it started. And only for the people and having patience in life, you know. Because bodybuilding is a wonderful sport as long as it's not abused.
Yeah.
People do abuse it. They don't know how to train. I've seen it in loads of gyms. And I just started training, and then I got married. Greatest thing that ever happened. And I dodged the army for 2 years. And I used to go down to the Seaman's Mission in the Dock Road. And I could have went away to sea as a carpenter, ship's carpenter, on the Hillary and Hildebrand, which run around in South America.
Yeah.
For 6 months. But I'd already met my future wife. And the army got me. And he put me in the Irish Guards in Pearbright. And from there, I went to Windsor. Stayed at Windsor Castle. Then you can forget about that PTI course. He said, you're going to Cyprus tomorrow, next week. And then from there, you're going to Lebanon and Iraq. And I've seen some bad things. You know, it's nothing to what's going on today.
Yeah.
But it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. I came out and I wrote a letter to my wife saying to her, would you marry me? And she sent a letter back saying, yes. When I come back from Lebanon, we were stationed at Windsor. And I had 2 weeks to go, and I come home. And I didn't go home to my house. I went straight to the shop where she was working. And I said to her, Liz. She didn't know. And the boss said, go home. And then I made arrangements to get married. I have 2 sons, one named Jeff, he trains. He's works on the oil rigs. And then my other son, Lee, he's a company director for a plastic injection film. And they have 3 sons, and they all train. So there must be something right.
In the genes, it's in the genes, Doug, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you've showed me a few tips while we've been in the gym. You know, I was quite close-minded to listening to other people over the years, and being like open-minded recently to new ideas, and listening to new training techniques, and definitely from the old school.
Yeah. See, people think because the heavier the weight, the bigger you're gonna grow. The more tendons you tear, the more muscles you tear.
Yeah.
All the people I've been with train slow and positive, no jerking, strict style.
Yeah.
And you've got to respect. You damage your body. All the professionals I've met, they don't train heavy. The reason being, if they train heavy and they get an injury, they cannot compete.
Well, you've only got to look at Ronnie Coleman, haven't you?
Ronnie Coleman, yeah. More wants more. For what? What's he got now? Just for the trophy.
Yeah.
There's money to be made. But I'm forced to train in a gym called Dedicated Fitness, where Sean, a very nice person to me, he's made me an honorary member. And the man behind the counter, Adam
Sean,
absolute gentleman.
Gentleman, yeah.
A gentleman. That's where I met you, Bill.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really know who you were till I said to a friend, who's that? He said, don't you know who that is? And so I'm here today, and it's such an honour and a privilege.
Do you know what? It's an absolute privilege to have you on, and I'm really engaged in these stories, and especially because I want to know what it was like, because you're talking about bodybuilders I used to grow up and read in magazines, the Flex magazine, like Bertel Fox, Lou Ferrigno, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sergio Nubret, who's the other, there was loads, Lou Ferrigno, there was, Tom Platz.
Tom Platz, yeah.
The list is endless on these old school bodybuilders that I can remember, and I was like, wow, get on him. Yeah. These were just incredible physiques, and I used to think, you could never look like that, but you actually did, and you've got the evidence to prove it. You were on stage with all these guys. Now, did you ever get involved in the steroid use? Did you ever come across? Because I know a lot of them you were using diabetic tablets as well, weren't they, and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with anabolic steroids as long as you're sensible. But people think because you take 1, 2's better.
Yeah.
You take 2, 3's better. They don't realise that your receptor sites in your brain shut down and stop producing hormone.
Yeah.
Right? It's very difficult to obtain real anabolic steroids today. They are made underground. But if you know the right people, like I do, who owns chemist shops abroad.
In Turkey?
No, not Turkey, no. I speak Spanish, Italian, Arabic, a bit of Russian.
There's a lot of Spanish drugs with the Anapolon 50s and that, weren't they?
Anapolon 50, yeah.
What do you think of them?
Anapolon 50, it was a 50 milligram tablet. It was quite strong, really, because it can give you estrogen in the nipple. Because I know a lot of people that's had the gland taken away.
Yeah, there were a pair of birds fucking tits, Al Zulu tits with them, won't you?
Yeah. It's a wonderful, I love the sport, but I've had a lot of sadness,
Yeah. How long was you competing in bodybuilding before you started?
About 30, before I started to come up.
Before
knocking on the door, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, years and years and years. And as I say, you see these people and they smile and you nod. Well, coming from how can I say, the generation that comes from, you make it your business
Yeah.
to get in touch with them.
You've got to knock at the door, haven't you?
And Frank Richards took me in, and from Frank Richards was Dorian Yates, Bill Hemsworth. No, don't do that.
Did you ever meet Dorian?
Yeah, I held him up backstage, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oiled him up.
Yeah.
He was one of the fucking best that come out of the UK, weren't he?
Yeah.
Dorian. There was no way. The shadow.
Yeah.
Incredible physique.
Yeah. I found Serge Nubray, a lovely man. We were on the coach.
Very sculptured.
Serge Nubray. Do you know his wife was a barrister, and she used to compete. I can't remember her name now, but I used to take my wife to most of these shows. I paid the airfare, they paid for the hotel, or the other way round. And she fainted on the bus coming back in Paris. Serge Nubray took her off the bus with Paco Rabanne, took her into the chemist, and she come out, she was fine. You don't meet people like that every day, you know.
Yeah.
I see people in the gym, it's a wonder they haven't had major accidents. I try to say, try it this way or try it that way.
Do you think they listen to you, or do you
No.
think they just dismiss you because they go, look at this fella here, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and they don't realise, like, look, I didn't know, right? So I've spoken to you a few times, and I can, you know, a lot of people get in touch with me, but when I speak to you and I speak to other people, you don't know the background, and then I've seen, like, the evidence, and I think, fuck,
Yeah, people have said to me,
look at this fucking
even,
man's
even
physique.
girls come to me
Yeah.
and say, what do you think I should do for this? And, can't think of his name. You've done him on a podcast.
Darren?
No.
No.
Oh, God. He used to be in the Marines, quite a hard lad.
He used to be in the Marines.
Oh.
Steve Nichols? I don't know. I don't think he was
Paul
in the...
Bentley.
Paul? He wasn't in the Marines. Or was he?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe he
He
was.
was very nice to me. He'd stop and leave whoever he was talking to and said, could you show these girls? And he said, listen to him. And I've said that to some people, listen. They're all nice people. I find that a very friendly gym. But you only get out of life what you put into it.
Yeah.
You know, no one gives you nothing in life. You've got to work for it, you know, and train for it.
So where did the treasure hunting come into? How did that come about?
That is a fantastic hobby.
Is this like with a metal detector or?
Metal detector, right. I'll start by saying there was a metal detecting shop in Lark Lane,
Yeah.
and next door to the metal detecting shop is my best friend. We've known one another 50 years, Paul Robinson. Everyone knows him. I know his family. And next door to the shop is a metal detecting shop. So I said to him, right, I'm going to buy a metal detector. What's that? I said, look for treasure. He said, you're mad. I said, no, I'm not. So I went down to the shop one day and I got very friendly with Brian, the man who run the shop. And the machine I bought was £50. But the machine I have today is £1,400. Goes in the sea after the gold. Gold diamonds, rings, chains, necklaces. And Brian said to me, do you want to go to Elo Castle? This was in the early years. I said, yeah. I'll see you outside the shop at 9 o'clock. I was there at 9 o'clock, 9:30, 9:15. And this man come up and says, are you Doug? I said, no, who are you? He said, I'm Paul. And we hit it off right away. And we've been to Seville, Madrid, Badajoz, Cordova, metal detecting. And the items you cannot buy. There's an axe, 2,500 BC, 5,000 years old.
This is what you found.
Yeah, plus many, many more rings.
Yeah.
Many jewellery, Roman coins, thousands, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. Roman brooches, necklaces, rings, everything. And when I took the axe to the museum, I'm quite an intelligent man. He said to me, where did you find this axe? I said, well, if you've done a soil analysis on it, you'll realise that the soil analysis is not from this country.
Mm.
He said, it is. As it's one of the Balearic Islands. I didn't say which.
Yeah. But they want to know where it is, don't they? So they can go fucking digging themselves.
Then I said, I bought a husky, and I could speak to the husky with sign language. It was a Samoyed, a male. And when I do something, I like to do it to the full extent. I won shows, qualified for cuffs. I was in Seville, metal detecting, and I got a phone call off my wife saying her sister has got leukemia, and it's just a matter of time. So, still doing the dogs, and I said, I think I'll get into acting. So, I started going to different places, and fortunate enough, a good friend of mine, Ricky Tomlinson, and Sinbad Keith Starkey, they came to the gym. They wanted to do a film about me, as regards myself was not strong enough to tidy the gym up. But yet the cleaning lady could pick all the weights up and put them away. For a pilot film for Channel 4. And I've done different slots in Granada Studios. I've done a lovely television advert with Robbie Coltrane, God bless him, quite a few years ago. I was in a torture chamber, and I don't know whether you know about the pit and the pendulum, but
No.
I was lying there. It's a big sword comes,
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. Like the fucking...
and he had a red tie on.
Yeah.
And the pendulum cuts the tie and he pops up to cut government red tape. And then I got another slot in Wild Man's Rogan Grave. It goes on and on and on.
You've had a very interesting career. You've had a very
They wrote
interesting...
2 books about me.
They've wrote
The
2
Life
books.
and Times of Marcellus. And you can rest assured Marcellus is a true and living person. And the story begins like this. I went to Seville to meet a man I'd never met, due to the fact one phone call from Mallorca saying, would you like to go to Seville? But the day we were going, he backed out. And I said to Paul, what's this fella look like? He said, don't be asking me. You speak Spanish. And there was a man walking around with a sign with Douglas on. And I said to him, and spoke to him in Spanish. And he was the nicest man we ever met. And we had the greatest week evermore. Who with his friends were from the Basques, from Barcelona. And the language is totally different than Spanish, you know.
So what is it you do with yourself these days?
What do we say yourself? It's difficult.
It is, isn't it?
Difficult.
You've had a a really difficult time the last couple of years, which is okay because you're not long. It was recent. You lost your wife not so long ago.
I lost my wife 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Didn't go out. Only for one man. His name is John McGuinness, Posty John, because we had our own gym for 35 years. And he said, why don't you go dancing? Now that's another story, Bill. Right opposite the gym was a Catholic club. And I come past the club. I said, walk past, and the church door was open. I'm not a religious person. And I looked into the church and saw them sitting there, people. And this nun come to me and said, you're okay? I said, no, not really. She said, sit down. I said, my wife's just passed away. Anyway, the priest come down to me, put his hand on my head, and he said something, and I said, thank you, walked out. Instead of turning left, I turned right and walked back into the Catholic club. And I learned to dance and met some lovely people. And this is another story. I can get on with anybody, and I was sitting there on my own, and this lady said to me, come and sit with us, what do you do? And the man that was playing the music said, I know you. You've got the gym over the road. I said, that's right, yeah. My nephew goes there. So I said, oh, it's difficult. I can't dance. I said, right. He asked this lady called Pauline and Kath to come. And I went a few times, and after the funeral, I just lost everything, Bill. The desire to do anything. So Posty John said, why don't you go back? So I went back. And this man come in and said, I believe you do metal detecting. I said, yeah. He said, I'd love to do that. And I said, it's not easy. Then the machine, I only had was about 150 quid. As I say, the machine now is 1,200, the best you can get. Because when you do something, you've got to do it 100%. So I stayed. And he said, do you go out? I said, no, not really. I said, but my friend Paul wants me to go to town. That's when my life changed. I went to town and people said, I've never seen you before. And women were talking to me and all that. And I was empty.
Yeah.
And went with this man. And he said, this is great, this. Are you going out next week? I said, yeah. Can I come? I said, of course you can. So Paul come down to the house. I'm not a drinker, and he got a bottle of vodka. Just have a little one, you know, like most people do. I knock come to the door. I said, Paul, will you get the door? He said, yeah. And he walked in, and Marianne walked in, and I knew then this was something beautiful. And she let me out to do, I can do the tango from Argentina, like to do on Strictly, South America. I can do the salsa, like Patrick Swayze. I can do the rumba, the dance of love. I would love to dance one more time, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
People become envious of you. And people who say to me in a certain dance in Liverpool, where did you learn that? I said, Marianne. And the iPad from the Russians, the Italians, and the Spanish. Once you do all the basic steps, then you can put your own interventions in, so nobody can copy you. And people used to say, you're one sexy man. I said to them, does it look out of order? No one can dance like that. And I have some friends that come to see me, Jeanette and Tony, they're dancers.
Yeah.
And she says, you were that unique. No one could dance with you. I said, I only have to find someone, and perhaps I can teach. And I haven't danced for 2.5 years due to the fact I got COVID and pneumonia, and collapsed in the house. You know, there's loads of things, Bill.
You still try and get to the gym as often as you can.
I go to the gym as much as I can with Adam.
Yeah.
He can't come today, unfortunately. That's why I'm here with John.
Yeah.
You know.
Big shout out to John for bringing him as well. A good friend of yours, John.
John's a very good friend.
Yeah, he supported you a lot there, and thanks for bringing him, John. Do you know what, right, Doug? It's been really lovely speaking to you. I really enjoyed.
Have you?
I've enjoyed, you know, and I know you've got plenty more. I know we can get you back on for a part 2.
I would love a part 2. You'd be surprised the things I've done. One instance, I own land in Mallorca, big enough to put this building on, big enough to build a hotel or apartments. And I said to my wife, I'm going to look at some land. She said, what for? I said, not for me, for us. I bought the land for a few thousand and sold it for a lot of money. And the money I brought out, it would have been a confiscation of £38,000 and imprisonment and whatever happens. And as we were sitting in the airport, a man walks towards me with a clipboard. And I could hear my heart going bum bum, bum bum. And all the money was in my wife's bras, knickers, pockets and everything. And he said, "Tienes fuego, senor? Do you have a light?" I said, "Yeah." I come home. Then I had the trouble of changing it. And it was changed and invested. It's for the family.
That's what it's about, in a family.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. And you know what, Doug? On the end of this podcast, I always ask you a question, right?
Whatever you want, Bill.
All right, so I ask every guest, is there any pearls or wisdom? Is there anything you'd say to a young Doug Thomalla? Have I got that right? That's your name?
Thomalla.
Thomalla. Is there anything you'd say to a young Doug Thomalla coming through the doors of life now? If you had the opportunity to speak to yourself at a younger age, what advice quickly would you tell yourself?
What advice? I've got 3 grandchildren and they all train. One of them trains and dedicated. He's a criminal lawyer. The other one's a criminal lawyer. I got 2 wonderful sons and that brought me out of trouble. You only get out of life what you put into it. And be nice to people and they'll be nice back to you.
Yeah.
And if they're not,
fuck them off.
yeah.
And with that, Doug,
I'd like to thank you very much, Bill.
thanks for coming
You're
on,
an
Doug.
absolute gentleman.
Oh, you are, mate. It's a
And
pleasure.
it's such a pleasure and an honour to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Doug.